Now, folks, here's a question for a lot of you that are in our audience that are watching today. How has the discovery of the fine-tuning affected what some physicists who before didn't believe in God, how did it affect their thinking that now they do believe in God, the God question?
Well, it's really a fascinating story, that story of late 20th century science, as these fine-tuning parameters were one by one being discovered, and again, against all odds and for no underlying physical reason. Many physicists were either shifting from a materialist or atheist worldview to a more theistic worldview, or were acknowledging that these discoveries were creating a great deal of cognitive dissonance for them. One atheist physicist, George Greenstein, said that the thought that some supernatural agency must be involved he said, it insistently arises. He couldn't get it out of his mind,
right,
but he didn't want to embrace it. And perhaps the most dramatic example of this was the shift in view that the discovery of the fine-tuning produced for the famous Cambridge astrophysicist Sir Fred Hoyle. Hoyle discovered a number of these fine-tuning parameters, as we discussed in the previous episode. He was initially a very staunch and even strident atheist, and eventually came to the view that, as he put it, the common sense interpretation of this fine-tuning evidence suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics and chemistry in order to make life possible.
Yeah,
so
chemistry and biology.
And you have a number of younger physicists. Luke Barnes from Australia has written a fascinating book called Fortunate Universe, and he defends a theistic design hypothesis or inference as the best explanation of the fine-tuning. And so I think that's an intellectual trend that has developed in the last 50 to 60 years within physics of a greater openness to theism because of a discovery, a scientific discovery that's occurred within physics itself.
Yeah, that's why I love your book, because you give a lot of the stories of the fellas that were staunch atheists like Sir Frederick Hoyle, and then they made just as strong statements on the other side when they came out after looking at the evidence for fine-tuning. And all of those stories are unbelievable. Doesn't mean a lot of them are believing Christians, but it does mean that they recognize that there's some kind of super intellect that did this in the universe. That's why things are operating the way they are.
Yeah, I call that the God hypothesis, that many physicists have come to a basic form of theism as a result of their scientific discoveries. Some, for example, Sir John Polkinghorne, another great Cambridge physicist, had a complete religious conversion and became a Christian and eventually an Anglican priest. Professor Barnes in Australia is also a very religious person, but many of the physicists have come to a kind of basic or rudimentary form of theism as a result of the scientific discoveries without knowing exactly what their religious point of view is in the totality of issues that they could address by thinking about religion.